Good morning, good afternoon, social media friends and business partners, and even to some of you who may be watching today's episode for the first time. In today's episode, I've asked one of my connections, Dennis Greco, to join me today so that he can share with me and you his business called Real World Training. So if you will give me just a few seconds, let's welcome Dennis into the studio. Good morning, Dennis. How are you?
Morning, Bill. How's it going?
I'm doing well. First thing first, thank you for sharing some of your time with me and my audience and your audience as well. Because we've known each other for several years, I came to realize recently with the launch of your business called Real World Training, I came to the conclusion that, you know what, there's so many of us that need to hear about what that business is, what the services and the resources you can share with all of us, both as individuals in society and also maybe even in a group setting, corporate workplace, right?
Yeah.
So with that, let me lead off with what I think is probably the most important question, and that is, Dennis, what led you to build Real World Training?
Firing it off with the hot ones right away. I love it. That's why you're a great business leader out there. You know, you're always right to the point so we could get business done. And it's difficult to pinpoint exactly why, because I've been into this most of my life. But it's always been like a side hobby, so to speak, but as the years gone on, and things change, the world is a different place. It's not as safe as it used to be anymore. There's every time you watch the news, there's danger, there's crime, I just got more involved and more involved. And I found that some of the skills that I've developed over the years, just doing my thing, translates well to other people, and I'm a little older, I've done construction in our business, in the real estate business most of my life. And as you get older, you try to look to things that are a little, less on your body and more on the mind, so to speak. And I wanted to do good out there. I wanted to figure out a way that we could come back together as people, as Americans, and work together for a greater good, bring us all back together. And this is the perfect way to do it, in my opinion. There's so many things that you can communicate with people, you could share, you can grow relationships, just preparing yourselves for danger, so that's why, that's basically why I started it.
Good answer. What I took away when we connected recently is your business accomplishes at least 3 targets, right? And that is awareness, safety, and protection. Can you touch on each of them a little bit more?
Sure. When you break it down that way, that is the core of everything that we're trying to do. Awareness is really the first step to this entire business and really to all of us on the planet, for protecting ourselves. So it's 2 parts. One is the awareness of people like myself that are out there trying to teach this, and that it's not taboo. You're not a conspiracy guy or girl, you know what I mean? It's out there, general information that children, housewives, lawyers, anybody could use on their day-to-day basis and just make themselves a little safer and a little more connected with the communities they live in. And so, getting the message out is the hardest thing, because as soon as you label yourself with something, let's say, shooting is a part of my business, or, it could be anything like that, it starts to eliminate people, right away. They're like, oh, I don't like guns, or I don't. And so it's making people understand, well, guns are just a tool, it's just a part of it, and you don't have to do that to protect yourself. Most people don't carry a gun, but there's other things. So I guess the communication part of the messaging, that's the first and the most difficult thing of it. What were the other two? Sorry.
The other two were safety and protection. Yeah.
Sure. So once you get into the safety end of it, then, obviously, the terms start to, answer themselves, but it's just trying to teach people the basics on how to be safe. I just put out a post on some of the places that I'm involved in now, just on simple stuff like locking your car, and how there's rashes of break-ins across, where we're at anyways. And the burglars, they just simply step into your car. Most people leave their key fob in their car. We're so, it's so hard to try to be safe when you have this false sense of security, because nothing ever happens.
Yeah.
And they steal the cars. And so just putting blurbs out to people like, hey, lock your car at night, check your car. Here's what things that could happen. Here's examples of what could happen. And so safety starts just with that, that stuff. And, that's a huge part of my business, is just, helping people. And it goes with safety and security, the same thing.
Yeah.
But this stuff's all, we all know it. The best part about it is we all know it. I think where I come in and my business comes in is that sometimes you need someone to remind you of the basics, so you could keep it in the forefront. So when you leave your house in the middle of the morning, you say, oh boy, Dennis said I should lock my house and I didn't check it. I should go back and double check. You know what I mean? And then next thing you know, you're not getting robbed, or, whatever it is. So it's the interesting part is building a business around that. Because when I tell you, Bill, hey, let's do a class and I'm going to teach you how to be safe, you're going to look at me and be like, oh, I know how to be safe, and why would I spend money on that or spend time on that? Even sometimes I do things just for free, just to help people out. And so it's difficult unless you can give people a taste of it. And then they say, oh, you know what? Maybe it wouldn't be a bad thing to brush up on that. I know a lot of people that they golf or they bowl and they're practicing. They spend money on classes. Right. Why wouldn't you do that for your life?
Very true. Very true. And sometimes, well, maybe more times than not, it's not that we don't know what we should do to stay safe, to be aware, but let's call it like it is. We sometimes take what's around us for granted.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Most people, it's funny nowadays, I think the media has a lot to do with it too, but they make us believe that we are safe for whatever reason. They make you believe that if something happens, the police are going to take care of you. But with the rise of social media and the rise of us as people communicating with each other outside of other forces that want to tell us what's real, we're able to see the truth, and we're able to see that, yes, the police are there to help us and they want to be there. But sometimes, if there's a natural disaster, they're going to be overtaxed immediately. You're on your own for a while. And if you have no concept of how to even do one thing, you know what I mean? You could put yourself or your family in jeopardy. And simply it's just because you didn't think about it, at all.
True.
So I don't know. I'm excited about as we grow, in our connections with each other, like this podcast today, and how we could, share things with each other and hopefully learn from them. Outside of all the things we see every day that, kind of barrages us with things like, don't worry about that. Don't pay attention to that. You're fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So the danger sometimes is believing that don't worry about it. We're fine. Because we do live in a real world, bad things do happen sometimes, right?
That's right.
Talk to me about this. What resources from your business, Real World Training Company, what resources are available to individuals who want to learn more, who want to participate in getting trained to be more aware, and maybe even like teams, teams of corporate employees and otherwise? Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. As we get more connected, more and more things start to come out of the shadows. There's things that have been around for 30 years that have been buried and people don't know about, and now they're coming to light. So let me start with the first thing. Probably the most important thing would be there's an organization. It's called American Contingency.
Okay.
And it is a national organization. It was started by a gentleman named Mike Glover. He's an ex-master sergeant in the Special Forces. He got out. He did some podcasts. If you're in that whole group, you probably followed him. And he got really angry because during the election cycle, they started to shadow ban him. And he wasn't doing anything but talking to people about how we should be, like what I'm saying, we should be more connected. We should be safe. If things happen, we should know how to defend ourselves. They're just common things. But, during the election cycle, you know how it was. A lot of things got taken off the internet for whatever reasons. So he got really mad and he started this organization. So this organization is exactly the question you asked. It's a place that anybody could go to. If you're, you could be any level, any person, anywhere. You could join this organization, and what it's made for is it's split up by states.
Okay.
And you could, once you join, you get connected with your state, and then you get connected with people in your general location. And it's made for you to connect with other people. And together you learn how to grow your communities that you live in, share information about just what we talked about, being safe, being prepared, train, learn about simple things like medical, taking care of a simple wound or stopping the bleeding, if you hit yourself with the lawnmower, whatever.
Yeah.
Communications, anything you want to learn about, canning, anything from the most extreme to like preparing for the zombie apocalypse, canning and, all the way down to simple stuff, like I said, medical. But the best part about it is it's growing because more and more people are figuring out that it's important. You don't have to be, you could be anybody and be a part of it, because all we're doing is connecting people with each other so we can work together and do things. So number one is that's the best place for anybody in the country to check out, AmericanContingency.com. Okay. And it speaks for itself. I'm not a spokesperson for them by any stretch of the imagination, but I am in the organization. I've been in it since it started. And it's really helped me in my business develop focus and more on what's important, because when I started, I just wanted to teach people how to shoot, and do concealed carry. And I realized really fast, it's not that easy to do that. And it's not that popular. And then as I started to understand about other things that I have, understanding in medical, things like that I could teach people this. So, that's a great place. Also, if you don't want to get involved with organizations right away and things like that, not that there's a lot of involvement in it, but FEMA puts out a lot of great stuff. There's a thing called My Ready Plan. And it is basically built by FEMA way back, like in the 80s. And they understood the importance of just what I'm talking about. People need to get connected and be prepared for disasters, because they say they're coming. If you're not prepared, you're in trouble. And the same things I've been telling you, they say, the police and fire might not be able to get to you right away. You got to have some water stored up. You got to be able to understand how to take care. So FEMA already has this stuff online that you could look at. They have workbooks, classes. It's fascinating when you start to jump into that. And by going to a place like FEMA that has nothing to do with me, nothing to do with American Contingency, you start to realize really quickly that, wow, the federal government's been telling us to do this forever. Why don't we hear this message? And all the information's there to get you started. So, and there's other resources as well, but those are the top two that I suggest anybody that's interested, even remotely, in protecting themselves or their families. Check out those two places, and you will not regret the 15, 20 minutes you spend just to look at it. And I guarantee you'll be stuck there probably for the rest of your life, because it's
Yeah.
addictive. Once you want to take care of yourself and your family, there's no turning back. You start doing more and more and more, and more people gravitate toward you. And now your sphere of influence, we used to call it in the B2B days, grows. And now, not to go on and on, but what's interesting is the key to some of this stuff is if there's a natural disaster, it's great to be prepared. It's great to have, your house is stocked full of food. You got whatever it is. But you got to remember, if there's a natural disaster and you're the only one that's prepared, you better be prepared to feed everybody in your neighborhood or defend it. So I always say that instead of doing that, why don't you spend some time now before the disaster hits and teach everybody to be prepared? And then guess what? The disaster comes through, everybody takes care of themselves, and before you know it, you're back to your regular life again.
Yeah, there's what I'm taking away listening to this as you shared it with all of us, Dennis, is there's a greater strength and more people banding together to share effort toward a bigger outcome. So yeah, I agree with you. The disasters can be, I guess, depending on where geography-wise we are, or some of our audience members, it can be hurricane, tornadoes, earthquakes, tsunamis, right? Et cetera, et cetera. And you're so right. I mean, our first responders, police, fire, and otherwise, they'll be busy trying to do what's obvious first before they can go down each and every avenue, street, to worry about the individual household family members. So right on. Now, besides yourself, that make up Real World Training Company, what I think I remember you shared with me is you have other resources that you lean on as well, right? Some of these first responders.
Well, sure. It's funny, like once you start getting into this industry and you start chatting with other people, you would really be surprised how many people are active in doing these things for themselves and for others.
Yeah.
But they keep it quiet because of the stigmatism that goes with it. They don't want to be pointed out as someone. They don't want to be pushed to say, I don't want to go political, but they don't want to be pushed to the left or to the right, because they're not. They're just Americans. You know what I mean? And so they stay quiet, and they'll only gravitate with other people that maybe they figure out, oh, you're like me in that aspect. Let's chat. You know what I mean? And it's a shame. And so sometimes it just takes like a guy like you or me to put our face out there and say, hey, you know what? It's not terrible. You shouldn't be afraid to protect yourself. And hopefully we could get more people out there. So back to your question, you would be surprised as a citizen, wherever you live in your community, if you went to your local officials, township, city, whatever level you want to be at, and you had a quick conversation with them about that, you would probably be surprised at how forthcoming they are and how willing they are to try and help out and give you avenues to help yourself out.
Yeah.
It's just not out there. It's not as easy as figuring out what new pair of Nikes you want to buy. It's not, because there's nothing in it for anyone, financially, I guess. So, but yeah, there's a lot of people that, and that's I hate to go back to the American contingency, but that's what's so unique about this group is they're focused on the connection portion more than anything, is giving people a place where they could blindly go and understand how many people they can network with. And so the fear isn't there. Sometimes when you're in a restaurant or on the street or just go to your local municipality, you're a little bit awkward, a little bit in fear. You don't want to do it. So you don't, you know what I mean? And this way you can kind of do it anonymously. You can figure it out. And then as you get a little more comfortable, you start to talk to people and you start to meet people, and it's fantastic. But there's a lot of other resources. I found since I started my business, what's nice is I've had a cross section of everyone from old friends like you in the real estate field, the banking, you know what I mean, to
Right.
people that are high-end tactical military, police, that have stepped up and said, you know what, this is for me. This is for my neighbors. This is for my family. Can I help? What can I do?
Yeah.
And so what's nice is if I have a client that comes to me and says, we have a church and we are all interested in becoming a little more safe. Can you do something for us? Well, I can, because I have so many resources I could reach out to and say, hey, who in my sphere here can help out on security for a church? And I might have 5, 6 people, firefighters, that say, oh, we've done that before in federal training, or, I'm in a church and here's what I do for my church. And
Right.
we group all these people together through my business, and we go out and we teach, or we have, seminars or whatever level they want to do, to entice, I don't know what the word might be, but just to get people thinking for themselves and
Yeah.
get the ball rolling. And then you don't need me anymore. You know what? I did my job. That's great. 9 out of 10, you find that down the road, then they'll come back and they'll say, we've been doing this for a while. We love it. There's a few things like we'd love to learn how to, say, work a tourniquet, or, whatever it might be. Maybe somebody tell us how we can better secure our facility, things like that. And then I come back in, and do it again. So yeah, the resources are out there. And the more that I have the opportunity, like you've gratefully, given me, I think the more people will come out of the shadows and help. And, in the end, if we're all doing it, I probably don't need to have a business. I probably won't make any money anymore, which is fine, but we'll all be safer. We'll all be happier. I think we'll all be healthier as a society, because we'll be able to talk to each other again and work together.
We'll be healthier from a mental standpoint as well. Last question, because what you offer to individuals, but if you group many individuals together, then you've got a team or a workplace, right? So in your mind, Dennis, how would corporate leaders, right, starting with a business CEO, how will they benefit from the message, the services, and the training that you can provide to their workplace? You've touched upon one that is so obvious, right? A place of worship. What are some other industries that you feel this will have a great impact on?
So, I mean, ultimately, I think it helps everyone. But I think if you're at a corporate level, let's say small business to, not small, but you have a few employees. I guess it's small, all the way up to the corporate level. There's a couple of benefits. Number one would be, well, you've been in the business a long time. The more you invest in the people that work for you or are partners in what you do, the more that you build, rapport, trust,
Right.
a better bond with each other. So if I'm a company owner and I hire real world training company to come out and do a class on a Saturday or during a work day and teach people how to do, let's say, CPR or situational awareness or something, short, not a lot of time. The takeaway from the employees is huge, right?
Mm-hmm.
They get a lot out of it and they didn't pay for it. And they then look to their boss and say, wow, you really did something great for me. Now I'm going to go out to the workplace and do something great for you, right? I mean, that's the way it's supposed to work. Also, I've found that if you start to get into team building exercises, I mean, we all in the business know how important team building is. When you create exercises that you can do as a work group, and it doesn't have to be tactical shooting. It could be simple stuff, situational awareness, it could be anything, medical. You can do all kinds of things that marries itself to being safe and secure. you start to build a bond between the people that work with each other. So now when they're out in the field trying to double team a client on sales or whatever, they have more of a bond to work together. They want to work together. They enjoy working together. So there's benefit to the company there as well.
Right on.
There's I could go on and on about the benefit to doing these, these corporate level and even small business level. I'd say last, I want to stick one more in there. Real estate agents, in our business.
Yes.
Real estate agents are the most at risk, when they're out there doing their job every day.
Right.
And I was surprised to see that the National Association of Realtors, I don't know if I could say that, that might be copyrighted, but they don't really offer much in the way of protection. I think they started doing some things now, but to get into that industry and really teach basics, look over your shoulder, scope the place out before you go in,
Right.
just simple things like that. Sparks, again, this is all about sparking ideas so you can do what works in your atmosphere to protect yourself. I think there's real benefit to society. I mean, think about, you work with realtors every day, and can you imagine the benefit to not only the realtor themselves, but their client? And now the client comes to you to get a loan, and they're singing praises about that. You're on board. Everybody wants to be safe. I mean, it's just marrying itself and just parlays itself. So, there's a lot of opportunity out there. I think the problem is, in today's climate, everybody is so concerned, especially now. Everything's getting more expensive. People are really trying hard just to keep their head above water. They don't have a lot of money to spend on things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you could look at it from an investment in your business, I think it's worth it. I think that it does pay itself back tenfold in your company.
Yeah. I agree with you. I fully agree with you. At this point, if I may pivot and share a few words and some time from our sponsor for today's podcast. Our sponsor for today's podcast is Planet Home Lending. And as Dennis shared with me the nice segue, which is, how can situation awareness, safety, and protection help in the business of real estate? Thank you, Dennis. Planet Home Lending can certainly help our consumers get them home when they need financing of their real estate transaction. And also when real estate brokers are looking for an experienced, trusted partner to work with them and their clients. So Dennis, as we wrap up, I wanted to simply say thank you for sharing your time with us. Thank you for giving us kind of a bird's eye view of what real world training is all about. So at this moment, let's wave a simple goodbye to our audience members. And Dennis, until we see each other again for perhaps the next episode.
That sounds great. Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.